Good evening. All rise for the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you to the veterans and their families for the sacrifice. Always appreciate it. Okay. First on the agenda, everyone on the council was given an account balance summary of what's happening. She can forward some of the rest she was working on. That'll be come out as an email probably tomorrow. It gives you a window into what is going on. Officer Russo is in training. He generally produces the report, and we have 2 new people at the front office, so there's no police report tonight. I will say that Officer Nora, to my knowledge, is like 15 for 16, and the only reason she didn't get that one, it was an assist to the county, and the guy stole the car. She took the trail right up to where he stole the car and lost him. He was apprehended after a chase from the county and a chase which resulted in a wreck, and then went over to Gwinnett County and wrecked out, and they picked him up here in Statham at the crossroads out here. So Nora is doing a great job for us. Recently got more than 2 kilos of meth off the street, amongst other things. So the last of the reports, Jordan produced a report for the council. Been a very, very busy month. As you can see, 151 locates, 98 water, and 53 for sewer. They repaired Hayes Road, some repairs on Highway 29, and multiple other potholes throughout the city. They were repaired with coal patch. One of the complaints was over here in the alley behind the library, and it cooled, and it sometimes had an awful odor, so they repaired that, and so now the runoff continues to the storm drain. So that's great. Continuing to do leaf and limb pickup as they get reported, and then they go and look for others while they're out doing so. 15 water meters were set during the month of October. One of those was out at the corner, the edge of Glenn Jackson Road, which was a major bore under the highway to get that service in. And so continuing to be busy. Moving on to the discussion items. Number 1 is the building permit fee schedule. This was tabled October 18, 2022 work session, and this would be to adopt an updated building permit fee schedule. It is up for discussion.
Well, I looked at some rental agreements from other cities on some of their buildings. I looked at Auburn, and their fees are not as high as what we're talking about going up to, and their buildings are a lot nicer and bigger than ours are. So that was a point that I wanted to make about the rental agreement that we're discussing.
The fee schedule is, the building permit fee schedule is what we're talking
Oh,
about.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions on that right there, on the, like the above-ground swimming pool permit, $200. I mean, what kind of above-ground pool are we talking about? One that's gonna have electricity ran to it, or just, a family goes out and buys, a $200 one to blow up in the backyard? Are they gonna have a permit for that, or?
Mayor, I can answer that question if you'd like. The entire purpose of these fees is to collect when an inspection is required. So you answered the question. If there's an electrical hookup that's required, that would require a code enforcement officer's inspection to sign off on.
So if they have a small, say, one of these Intex pools that costs $200, and it's got a pump that has to go in to run the pump, are they gonna have that?
I don't believe a building permit would be required for that, but
Okay.
Usually the only time a permit would be pulled is if there was a need to the electrical hookup.
Okay.
The ones that run off of 110,
Yeah.
just run, they don't care if you have an extension cord.
Okay. I didn't want a family to get dinged, for just having, those pools set up.
These fees actually are what pays to have the inspections done. City really doesn't make money on it, because it pays to have somebody come out and actually check it and let them know everything's good, and, you can move on with it.
And also, I like the fence permit. I know April had said it was applied to any type of fence, and I had a question about, some of these small fences that you can buy at Home Depot, you don't even have to dig, you just have the stakes you put in the ground and then attached to the fencing. Is that gonna require?
It depends on the height. If I'm not mistaken, there's a height requirement. I think if it's over 6. It's either 6 or 8 feet.
Privacy fence.
Exactly, I think it's either
Yeah.
6 or 8 feet, but the code specifies what fences require permitting and don't require permitting. And again, the reason why is because if it gets to a certain height, for structural purposes, posts have to be sunk so that if it falls over, it doesn't cause,
Yeah.
risk of harm. Again, the operative question is, to answer your question, there is clarity within the code about what does and does not require a permit.
Okay. Okay.
Didn't we update our fee schedule about 2 years ago?
Not these. There were others that the fee schedules were updated. None of these were included in that.
How are we policing these? Are people going out to make sure that, this is being policed?
The majority of people in Statham will come in and say that they want to put up a fence, or they want to put in a storage building or a swimming pool, and they're, directed by the staff, here's the paperwork, you've got to provide their boundaries, because a storage building has to be so far off of the property line, it has to be so far from the dwelling and so on. So they provide that, and then it gets sent in to the Bureau of Veritas via electronic means, and if they're only putting in an 8x10 storage facility, they're told that they don't need a permit. It's anything that's 120 square feet or more, and then it's based on how big is it. I know you did one, you paid, I think, 50. I did a bigger building, so I paid, I believe, 100. But, they come out and they make sure that it has the hurricane straps in place and all of that, and then I applied to do electric. So I had a permit for the electric, I think was, let's see, this one here, for electrical. I think that one's going up. I think mine was $100 for that permit. It may not have.
Mayor, while you're looking for that, to answer the second part of your question, because I remember across, for those individuals that do not come in, because we do not have a full-time code enforcement officer, we simply rely upon citizen complaints. So when an unapproved structure or an unpermitted structure goes up and a neighbor sees it and reports it to City Hall, then code enforcement will go out and inspect. And if they determine that if work was completed without a permit, you'll note towards the bottom, fee for work done without a permit, 200% of the original permit fee. And then it also has to pass inspection. So they basically have to pay double for their asking for forgiveness later, rather than permission on the front end.
You know, what, this general repair permit, $250, can you go a little more, that's kind of broad.
Again, it is broad, but there's a system in place and the code is clear about what does and does not require permits. And like the mayor said, when they come in, the city staff and Bureau Veritas are trained to know what does and does not require a permit. A permit costs when it doesn't fit into one of the normal categories.
Any other comments or questions on the permits fee schedule?
It's based on the size, from what I can gather. I thought at one time it used to be based on how much the building or the outbuilding cost, what my understanding was. This may have been from years ago, I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Any other comments? Item 2, update facility rental rates. This will approve new rates scheduled for rentals in city facilities. Tier rates based on location of residency. Updated rate schedule includes a 50% off discount for nonprofit, government, or veteran organizations based on research of rental applications. We found that 86.11% of all facility rental agreements, people live outside of the city limits of Statham. A lot of those are Athens, Winder, and Winterville, places like that. So the proposal is for 200 for residents and 425 for outside the city. Based on 8 hours, we generally call them 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's the way that the paperwork is written up. $100 for Hillman Rainwater and Robert Bridges. Proposed rates are as follows: $250 for inside the city for community center, $400 outside of the city. Hillman Rainwater and go to $150 and $250 for outside city residents. Floor is open.
I'll just bring it back up again. I was looking at other cities, in particular Auburn. They've got the Harry Rainey Center, and the entire facility ranges from 200 to 400, and that's a very big facility. So I think we need to go back and look at those fees again and make sure that we're not overcharging. And I know that we talked about the tables and chairs being in disrepair or being tore up, and we might need to look at taking credit cards and holding those numbers as a deposit so that, if any damages are done. But I just, those two buildings at the rec department, I do have a problem with, the alcohol being served there because it's a mixed use, it's a mixed use facility. And so we might need to look at a little bit, need to look at that as well. So I just have my, I just feel that we might need to go back and look at this again.
Well, the way that the contract states is if they have alcohol, they are required to have a licensed bartender, and they are required to have an off-duty Statham police officer. I think it's $48 an hour for a minimum of 4 hours to make sure that things don't get out of hand. We've replaced 5 of the round tables at the main community center. When they've gotten broken, I don't know, but I have a policy in place that when the guys check the facility, that they make sure that all the tables will stand and not collapse. Anything that's loose that could cause a problem, they are to remove it and repair it, or we have to replace it. Officer Hood has taken it upon himself to pull footage every single Monday. By any damages that have been brought up, and pictures are taken by the public works employees.
Well, I think we should go back, as Debbie said, and look at it. Now, you have a 50% off discount for nonprofit, government, or federal organizations based on the research, but you don't have a time frame in there. Supposing you're only going to give it for an hour or 2 hours, you're going to charge them the same thing?
This is whatever the council wants to do. These are just recommendations by me and the staff. The decision is yours. Currently, I believe that they get nonprofit or not-for-profit, I believe, get it for free. And that's my understanding.
Okay.
So if we wanted to do that, continue that, the whole purpose is, as you know, as long as you clean up, I don't require a deposit. The Girl Scouts have the one across the street 2 days out of the month, the Boy Scouts 4 days out of the month, and they so far have done a great job of cleaning up after themselves. There was a small accident with a soap dispenser. They took responsibility for it. It just wasn't fastened on the wall correctly, and it just came off when one of the boys washed their hands. So it was not a big deal, and I let them know that I appreciated them stepping up, but it wasn't the Boy Scouts that were at fault. So, these, like I said, these are recommendations by me and the staff. Council is open to make whatever changes that they would like to see, and we'll go from there.
Well, Mayor, I personally don't want to go up on any fees of any sort. That's my opinion. And on this, the facility rental rates, I think maybe a better solution would be to require a credit card and hold the credit card and let the people that are renting know that if it's not, if it's in a state of disrepair, if it's not left in a clean manner, if they break tables or whatever, they'll be charged. Most like similar to when you rent VRBO or Airbnb, something along those lines. And by doing that, maybe people will be more careful not to break things. I know accidents happen, but it's an accident, and if it's broken by the people that, rent it, then they don't have to be held responsible. So rather than go up on the rental fees, hold those people responsible that are breaking it and are leaving it in disrepair, dirty, or whatever.
Is there any time restraint or time period that we can hold a credit card in the city?
So holding those credit cards, usually you can't have an open-ended agreement like that. Usually you have to only hold a specific amount. The theory being that you can't just hold somebody financially hostage without, deposits are okay, open-ended are a little bit different. And then timeframes, yeah, you need to specify the timeframe upon which it can be released.
Yeah.
But again, for a facility rental like this, we should never have any kind of a problem with a time frame, because usually we get it back, it's usually inspected within a day or two.
Yeah. So we could say $300 deposit, credit card, 5 days, up to 5 day hold.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have, the fire inspection allowed inside now?
Once a year, they are inspected. Occupancy is posted for this building on right there, and another place up in the front. The community centers, it's usually mounted on the wall somewhere. I believe over there it's in what I call the great hall, not the kitchen. But they do once a year, excuse me, on inspections.
Is this in the agreement when they sign it, that they have to adhere to the safety precautions of the building, where they can't go over the allotted number of folks that can be inside that building? So that people that rent it need to know that?
You can set, I know of other municipalities that set occupancy limitations. Usually that coincides with the fire rating,
Right.
but if you wanted to set a lower number, you could.
I didn't see that on the list, and I didn't know if it was there. Maybe I overlooked it. I don't see it.
I think we have it in the front of each of those books, and it, when they rent, you all tell them this is what is allowed at this facility. And usually they work with the prospective renter and ask them, how many do you think you're gonna have? And they may, wanna rent this one over here, and they aren't gonna have more than, say, 40 or 45, then they'll make the recommendation for the helmet.
And coming across this, I think that paragraph 10 of the general conditions, it says the premises should not be used in violation of any regulation of law or any government body nor in a manner to create a nuisance or trespass nor in a manner to endanger the construction capabilities of the premises. I think that language covers that. Again, that's for fire rating. If the city wants to set a lower number, that would not cover it. But I think as it relates to fire code, that language right there covers it.
Getting back to the alcohol, I know you said a licensed bartender has to be on site. Is that checked when the officer go out there? Do y'all check to make sure he is licensed, or?
As far as from our understanding, since they're normally, you have to give the chief on that. Because I haven't attended one of the community centers, like when they have a gathering, I would check with the chief of police just to make sure. But if I were to take a guess, I would be fairly certain to do.
I know Officer Hood has, and I believe Officer Russo has been there. And it is stressed by the staff that you're not allowed any alcohol beverages unless you have, and they stress that you have to have a licensed bartender and a officer to make sure nothing gets out of hand.
And I have another question, so that if they're out at the rec department and they're having alcohol, are they allowed to go outside the building, or they must be maintained inside the building?
I don't believe Officer Russo or Officer Hood allowed them out of the building with an open container.
You know, because it's a mixed use
And that's their
area,
purpose,
so-
is to make sure that that doesn't happen. We have had a couple instances, one over here and one over at Hillman, that got out of hand, and they were both alcohol related. So, and they were addressed. They lost their deposit, but I think it's $100 for Hillman deposit, which the response the lady gave me was, I didn't expect to get it back anyway. So, I guess she figured it was cheaper than 4 hours of a police officer and a bartender. So, you know, they can police it, they can drive in, and, you know, the city has every right to go. The police can go in and check, and if they are having alcohol, they can shut it down and ask them to leave. Am I correct on that, Council? They violated the rules, and therefore they won't get their deposit back. And I'm sure there would be other recourses. Any other questions on it? So I would, I guess, suggest that council send in their recommendations, and we can modify this accordingly. Moving on to item number 3, it's an ordinance, O-22-06. This is the first reading. The ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Article 7 of the City of Statham, Georgia Code of Ordinances to clarify the duties, obligations of municipal officers of public records and information, to establish a document retention calendar for public records, establish an effective date and other purposes. And for this, I would like, if you would, explain it.
Sure thing, Mayor. So the Code of Ordinances currently has a very, very short provision that simply states that the City of Statham hereby adopts the Georgia Open Records Act. Don't know if we necessarily ever needed to really do that. We're bound by it, regardless of whether we adopt it or not. But one of the concerns that we've had, and there's been some instances both in the City of Statham and in other cities, where public employees and other officers inadvertently or intentionally will release information that would normally be exempt under the Georgia Open Records Act. And it leads to a lot of legal problems and exposure for the city when that happens. And so this policy is being amended, or the proposed ordinance is designed to try to centralize and safeguard and make sure that that confidential information that would normally be exempt from disclosure under the Open Records Act, is not inadvertently disclosed by someone other than the city clerk, who is technically the custodian and the person in charge of responding to open records requests in the City of Statham. The other thing that the ordinance does is simply adopt the document retention schedules for local governments that's promulgated by the State Records Committee. There's 172 pages of retention schedule that explains, you know, for, I'll say, a zoning application, how long does the city keep it? And while we have informally been following it, another question that a lot of people would have in response to an open records request is, we produce this, why didn't you produce something, you know, 7 or 8 years old? Well, if our document retention schedule, if we don't have one, that's a fair question. If we do, and we say we only retain records up to 5 years, that answers the question as to why our documents are seized, because we don't have them anymore. So it's just, again, one of those button-up, belt and suspenders kind of provision to make sure that it's clear what records we do keep and what records we don't keep, and for how long.
Why the change from public, open records to public records? What's the difference?
There really is none. The difference is only in language that, there's the argument that can be made, and it's a hyper-technical one, but it does come up about, the Open Records Act has a clear definition of what constitutes, well, let me rephrase that. The Open Records Act doesn't define open record as open record. It talks about public records. And so we are changing the language of public records so that it links up with the Open Records Act, and so that our definition of what a public record is tracks what the Open Records Act definition of public records is. So we're really, I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we're just changing it so that the language syncs.
So Jody, I don't know if you have the same thing in front of you. Page 3,
Okay?
number 2, where it says public record, and it's given a definition, it means all documents, papers, letters, mail, books, tapes, photographs, and so forth. So that's just stating, it's given a definition of public records, obviously. But
And that's
under, kind of, looks like it's kind of under confidential information.
So there's two different definitions. So that's number 2. Number 1 is confidential information.
Right.
So there's a public record, and contained within the public record could be confidential information. So don't interpret this necessarily as a prohibition of the disclosure of a public record, but rather the confidential information contained therein. Let me give you an example. So let's say in an employee's file, there's a health document that provides details about the employee's health, background, and medical treatment and what have you. Under the Open Records Act, there is an express exception for those types of documents. And so we don't want the disclosure of what would normally be exempt and what we call here confidential information, even though it may be contained in a public record. So, again, hypothetically, if one of you had a public record out on your kitchen table and you had a friend over and the friend saw it, that's an inadvertent disclosure, but it would be okay under this policy so long as there's not confidential information contained therein. Does that make sense?
So basically, it protects the city from releasing information they shouldn't.
That's exactly right. That's the goal.
And can you explain section C, where it talks about USB storage, file-based storage?
Yeah, so the issue there, and it's the difference between storing and viewing, which I know you appreciate with IT background. So understanding, this was some discussion amongst the city personnel and myself about whether or not this restriction should be, you can't access documents at all on personal phones, tablets, computer devices, etc. It was my position that that's simply untenable, and that in the world where phones and iPads and tablets fail or we forget phone chargers or what have you, to restrict it only to city electronic devices would be untenable and practical. But the compromise is when a public record is stored on an employee or a public officer's personal device, the city no longer has the ability to safeguard that from an IT perspective. Viruses, computer hackers, firewalls, etc. We know how we control and how we safeguard documents within City Hall and within the city's servers, but the second those documents and the confidential information is stored on a private device, we lose that control. And so again, this is just our attempt to make it clear, no storing, so that again, we can safeguard against inadvertent disclosures.
So when you say personal computer, you're actually meaning a personally owned
Correct.
computer or device.
Right, not a city issue.
And then, well, I mean, there's other issues with safeguards, even with a city-owned device, but I guess that's for another discussion.
But again, that's something that we know we can control at least, and if our own policies and procedures need to be corrected, we can, but we can't mandate somebody do something on their private tablet or computer.
I'll add there.
Other questions or concerns? Okay, number 4 is resolution, R-22-03. The resolution is for the mayor and the city council of the city of Statham abandoning any interest in an unopened 20-foot alleyway located between properties known as 1951 Broad Street and 1949 Broad Street, Statham, Georgia. I guess just to simplify it, it's the old Chronic home, which is now owned by Telstar, on Railroad Street, and next to that is Miss Lambright. They come to an agreement on this. Is there any explanation that you would like to?
Only that, the two property owners provided us with a written agreement and commissioned a survey showing the division of the property. What you have before you is a resolution and the quitclaim deeds, which the individuals have reviewed and approved, allowing for this. State law allows us to convey narrow, unused strips of land so long as all parties adjoining said strip consent to the abandonment and the conveyance to whatever their deal is. So that's what has happened here. It's an unopened alleyway that, best we can tell, has never been maintained or whatever by the city. And the only other thing I would point out is this does solve a boundary line problem, because there are improvements. There's driveways, there's certain encroachments in there. So it eliminates, for both the city and the property owners, certain boundary line issues.
And we know there's no public utilities buried or anything.
There's none of, we checked with Jordan didn't say anything about it. He didn't say there was any drains or any infrastructure like that.
They follow Lucille Street, and this would go toward Broad Street, 20 feet.
And I didn't see it included in the packet, but I'm pretty sure, the easiest, I'm more of a visual person. But if y'all have not seen it, there is a plat that shows the alleyway in question and what the division would look like. And if y'all have not seen that, I'll make sure that Isha or April get that to y'all.
Any other questions on that? Okay, next on the agenda is the year 2023 City Council meeting calendar. You have that before you. And they should have provided an actual calendar and highlighted and circled each one of, that one is the holidays. My apologies. Yeah, but every one of these dates have been verified. It's just an extension of this year, last year, this year, and so on. So that you have in some cases it's the first Thursday, and in some cases it winds up being the second Thursday, but it's always the third Tuesday, and they have been confirmed. So there would need to be, and those should be the holiday schedule there. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So the yellow is there. So, any questions or corrections on that? Okay. Number 6 is the year 2023 holiday schedule. That also has been provided to you, and it's on that same color-coded calendar. entire year, and it follows the actual list. And this list was approved last year by the council. I understand it has to be every consecutive year, each year. Yeah, and it does clarify the issue that we had with the Christmas holiday. That's the only one that really was a conflict, I guess. Any questions or corrections on that? Okay. Item number 7 is general construction at the City Hall. This would approve Sunrise Roofing LLC for construction renovations to the front of City Hall office space as approved by City Council on the fiscal 23 budget. Allotted budget approved $46,000. This capital improvement was advertised for the city's financial, policy, and legal organ for 4 consecutive weeks. Policy only advises 2 weeks, and advertised on the city's website with no formal bids received. Due to no formal bids received, city staff solicited proposals and received 1 proposal in the amount of $45,097.18. Question?
Mayor, I don't think we should move forward with this at this time. We have other things that we're also in the budget, and we've been told that we were going to have to wait until after the first of the year to start those due to financial situations. And because of that, I personally think that we need to hold off on doing any construction at City Hall. We've got a roof at one building. I've been told that it leaks. And we got an HVAC unit at another building that needs to be replaced. We also want to do improvements over at the community center across the street. And as far as I know, none of that's been started yet. So I personally would like to hold off on this until some of that stuff's done to make sure that we don't run out of funds this year before they're finished.
What improvements at community center?
Well, we talk about putting the sound system over there and possibly sound dampening on it there as well. And then if there's any money left over, a projector system for people to use, for us to use, we have.
Okay, any other comments or input on the item number 7?
If I may add, this same company did put in a, proposal for the roof at the same time, and I think April said that amount did not require it to come before council, she was moving forward with it, I believe.
With the roof?
Mm-hmm.
That's the group of the people building.
Yes,
Yeah.
How much was that?
I don't have it in front of me, so I'll let April email you guys and the amount.
I'm concerned about that building over there, putting a roof on it. So that's the concern of mine,
What's that?
the roof over Hilton.
Yeah, your concerns.
I mean, it's a small little shed building with a flat roof, and, just, to me, putting more money into that building, I'd like to know how much that roof, we're gonna spend for that roof. Because putting more money into that building, in the condition that it's in, concerns me. I think that we can do a better job. We could look for some grants where we could actually put a nicer building there, but to, go through the expense of putting a roof on that particular building. It was a shed at one time, and it's just been, kind of made up as you go along, so. I'd like to know how much that, we're talking about that roof. And I do believe that, the city hall needs to wait on some of the other things. We did not prioritize things from our budget, and we should have done that. Things that are, you know, from bad or from worse to better is what we should be doing, and, I don't think that we did that. And I think that, we need to also look at those particular items that we have down and projects that we need to do and put them in order as to when the money comes in, that we can pay for them.
And Debbie, I'd like to add, that I agree with you, I think we need a new building down there. I don't want to spend $28,000 to $30,000 on that roof, which I think it has been proposed, and then turn around a year or 2 years from now and decide to build a new building, when we could wait a little longer. As you said, maybe we could find a grant somewhere and plus what's already put out for it and have a nicer building down there.
I think the city of Statham deserves a nicer building than that.
How bad is it leaky over there?
How bad is it there? It's not only leaking, it's mildew, it's been leaking for quite a while. But I would suggest that you, get the keys and go look. I'm not there for that.
Yeah, I just wonder if it could be just, you know, in the
Well-
meantime, being patched up without putting a new roof on it, to be able to continue to use
That
it
really
until
just
we.
depends on how bad off it is, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
Yeah,
It already, it has blocks
yeah.
up on the top and the back,
Mhm.
holding down the chimney
Yeah.
to help prevent the leaking.
Mhm.
But water finds a way anyway.
Oh, yeah, and then the old system.
But if you go
No.
down there and look, the hallway,
Yeah.
in the bathroom, you can see it and tell.
The only issue with that, and I'm not disagreeing about a building over there. I would love to have a nicer facility over there as well, but in the meantime, I think we have to do something to keep it from leaking so it's usable, so that, you know, nobody gets rained on. And certainly if it's got mildew or anything else in there, it's got to be taken out.
Yeah.
So until you get the money to build a new facility, we have to fix it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we gotta fix it. And I know we don't have the money right now to build it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, if
I
we
just don't want
could
to see
have
us
it
putting a ton of
inspected,
money in
You don't wanna lose what you got.
Yeah.
in a roof.
we could have it inspected, and
You know.
if they can at least patch it up to use for right now.
I'd like to know how much we're talking about.
I think it says 28,000.
28,000.
Previous bids, 27,497 to 36,700.
I just put a new roof on my house for 21,000. So,
Costs that much these days.
And
Yes.
it's much bigger than that building.
and it's not even half the size of that little building.
Mine was 10, Lisa,
So,
that you need my contract, dang. And Millwood is cheap.
really.
Well,
I'd certainly like to see quotes on it, again. I'd like for the council to see the quotes.
Is that like a commercial style roof that's on it, that they're replacing, or is it just asphalt shingles out there?
No, it's flat.
no, it's
I guess.
the corrugated roofing. This, what's on there is the ridge. This was proposed where it would have the ridges, but it's like 10 inches or whatever between and then a ridge. So it would be another metal roof. The other ones that were like 45,000, I think, was the highest one.
Should build a whole brand new building for that.
And that was to do a TPO roof, like over here. 36,700, that was the TPO roof. And I think the rest of them were metal.
That's an old concerns me over there.
Yeah, that's a hell of a hazard.
Yeah. We need to have somebody over there to take a look at that.
came in, we received a bid less than what was budgeted. The budget was $28,000, the bid was $23,710, the only bid that we got. Okay,
And for the new butler building, that's for that money.
any other,
That might be something else like that, but that's here too.
any other comments or questions about that?
I'm good with that discussion.
Okay, is there a need for executive session?
Yes, Mayor, although there's an error on the agenda, there's no need to discuss the disposal, purchase of property. That was the alley abandonment issue, so there's no need for discussion of that in executive session. But for pending potential litigation, there is.
Okay.
Make a motion to go into executive session for pending or potential litigation.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. There's nothing at all.
Mayor, I'd like to amend the motion, to go into executive session for pending or potential litigation, and also to discuss, purchase, dispose of, or lease real estate.
That's it. Yeah. We need a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Do I have a motion to go out of executive session?
So moved.
Which
So moved.
Second?
Good one.
Debbie,
It's hand second.
All right, so all those in favor? It's unanimous.
The mayor and the city council of the city of Statham adjourned into executive session to discuss matters exempt from the Open Meetings Act, specifically to discuss pending or potential litigation, as well as to discuss the potential purchase, disposal, lease of real estate, subject to approval prior to a public vote. No votes were taken during executive session. An affidavit and resolution will be included with a copy of the minutes.
Thank you, Council. At this point, we have citizen input. Has everyone signed up that would like to speak? Okay, who is first on the agenda?
Ms. Cheryl Venable?
Okay. You have the time?
I do.
Wait. Go, all right. My topic tonight is gonna be on the agenda. I've been, for the past few months, noticing that there has been topics on the work session and then other topics that are followed on the second session. And some of the things change. What I would like to see is, first of all, the agenda posted earlier. And I know this is at the discretion of the mayor, but it'd be nice as a citizen to see the agenda posted a week before the meeting. So as a citizen, I can do my due diligence for my research. I would also like to see, after each item on the agenda, a closed session to the council and open up to the public for the public input. As of tonight, there's 2 items on this agenda. I really would like to either ask questions or have a comment at that particular time, instead of waiting for my 5 minutes to address this requirement to be a citizen input. I would also like to see citizens input move before the executive session. This way we have time to decide whether we want to actually stay and wait around for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, for you to come out and say, okay, we're done. Also, like tonight, we had a couple items here that we're going to have changes, ordinances, resolutions. I would like to personally see the citizens be able to have that information at hand. Only because, once again, I would like to do my research and do comparable when I would like to speak on something, or if I want to get a hold of my council member to ask questions. Tonight, one of the agenda items was going to be number 7, construction. Valid points were brought up. We have 3 particular city hall areas that we can improve on that bring in revenue. We have across the street, and we have both parks. I do believe, as maybe some other people believe, we need to put the money that we're going to get the return. We rent out those facilities, and those facilities give us a money return. We need to put the money into them first before we put the money into City Hall. There's 5, maybe 6, 7 people here, but there's money there. Let's begin to think about the business part of the avenue, what government is. We are essentially a business in some format because we provide services. And with those services, it brings revenue back to us. I also do believe in that with the agenda item upon the rental of these facilities, I do believe we do need to start using the credit card and holding money. But here's the idea too. Whoever rents the place should take a walkthrough with a city employee, and do a checklist. We have how many tables, we have how many chairs, we have this. You have a $500 deposit. When you come back and give us a key, we're going to do another walkthrough. Everything okay? Bam, you're done. Their eyes are on it, your eyes are on it. If there's damage, your eyes are on it, their eyes are on it. We have to start thinking outside the box here, people. We have to look at the longevity our city is going to be growing. And these are wonderful facilities. They do bring a lot of revenue. But really my issue here tonight is I would like to see a better format for the citizens' input during the meeting on each agenda item. A lot of people might not want to ask questions. A lot of people might not want to say anything. But there are some of us who would like to address it in that moment. And it might be something that you didn't think about. And you could give us a question, you could give us an answer. Whether it be at the moment or later, would be appreciative. We need to look at the citizens' eyes and ears of what these meetings mean to us. And what it means to me is being educated, being prepared, and having my right for my voice to be spoken. That's
Thank you.
Mayor, next is Kurt Bogenreiter. Thank you. My name is Kurt Bogenreiter, 69 Broad Street. I think most of you are familiar with who I am. Tonight, I really wanted to touch on two things. The first thing I wanted to touch on was number 7 on the City Council agenda. I'd like to know who requested these improvements. Was it the City Council? The City Council felt it necessary to do the renovations to the front portion of City Hall? Was it somebody within the City Works Department? Or is this a decision being made by the mayor unilaterally to spend my tax dollars on improvements that I don't see any necessity for? I mean, what are we spending $46,000 on City Hall for? Last time we allowed the mayor to make these decisions, we had the city, the venue here reduced to the size, almost half of what we previously had. I mean, why was that done? So, I mean, I think a couple of our city council members are questioning why this is being done before other improvements are being done, or other expenditures are being done. I don't understand it. I think we really need to reassess the mayoral power that's continuing from the last administration through this administration, and where it seems that city council is their hands are bound and not able to reel in these decisions that are being made. Maybe the mayor thinks that $46,000 isn't a lot of money, but I think $46,000 is a lot of money. Particularly when we look at what the improvements, quote unquote, that were done to this venue previously. And I don't think that those were necessary. Lastly, I'm going to, again, as I have at previous city council meetings, request that the mayor step down as mayor for the aforementioned reasons that I had outlined in previous meetings. Again, the lack of communication between him and the city council. Again, this number 7 on the agenda, I think, is a prime example. It seems, again, there's little communication between the mayor and the city council as to why these improvements need to be done and why other things that the mayor has done have been done. So again, I'm going to ask that the mayor step down from his tenure as mayor, effective immediately. Again, this is, I hate to keep on harping this, but to allow someone who's been through personal bankruptcy 4 times to have reign over my tax dollars, I think is ludicrous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we would allow him to take any of our tax dollars and expend them in any way possible. I mean, and it seems, again, this is what's happening here with the general construction to City Hall to improve, improve the City Hall. I really would like the City Council to reel that one back in and question why these improvements are being done. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's it? Okay, next on the agenda is minute approval for October 18, 2022, regular meeting submitted to the council on October 20, 2022. Any concerns or corrections on the minutes? No corrections. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. So motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Thank you all.